Alrighty, guys. Day 2 of TableCon 2024. So, we got 3 new games that that we tested out, that we played, that I got some thoughts on, and then I got some notes on board games as a whole and some philosophizing I've been doing in my head. Okay, so first one. Exploding Kittens. So this is basically Uno-ish. It's maybe like one step above Uno. It's fine. It is functional, serviceable as a game. Definitely not the kind of thing that I would want to play a bajillion times or anything. And we were playing the NSFW edition, which kind of had an element of that sort of Redditor moment, narwhal bacons at midnight, in the grand scale of edginess, of like tasteful edginess versus like more cringy, embarrassing edginess. This was certainly on the slightly more embarrassing, trying too hard kind of side of things. Trying to think. Like, I guess strategy wise, not particularly a whole lot going on. I think generally you just want to hold on to like all your cards until the very end, and then once the exploding kittens start coming out and people start defusing them, that's when you just like start dropping like 5 attack cards in a row. Uh so yeah, I guess it's a game called Exploding Kittens, so I guess you're really getting out of it what you would expect. Okay. Secret Hitler. This game I think is quite a bit more interesting. I've got some more stuff to say about it. On the one hand, I feel like you got this game with Hitler in the title. You know, you got this board game that is about Hitler. That's a good hook. That's an interesting, ooh, well, I gotta check this out kind of thing. But in general, it is this social deduction game about voting in various members of the government, which I generally like the premise. I like the idea of, you know, the liberals and the fascists and trying to figure out who's the Hitler. Uh, I like how the mechanics of the game reflect the themes and the liberals want to do everything methodically and logically, and then the fascists are just trying to spread chaos, which I guess makes sense with at least how they're getting into power. I can see where they're going with that. But generally, just as like a social deduction game, I have a hard time enjoying it. Like when it comes to social deduction games, there's a great variety of them. On the one hand, you have the coups, which I do like the social deduction, you against everyone else. And like everyone has their like own thing that they are like trying to accomplish, or maybe like the sort of more along the lines of like One Night Werewolf, where I guess that one sort of has teams, but also there's a bunch of like individual people just trying to accomplish their own thing. That's like throwing a wrench in the works. Um, and then on the totally other side, you've got the like blood on the clock tower, or blood in the clock tower, whatever that's called, which I've never played before, but it is basically another social deduction game. But there's like so many roles, and there's even like a GM DM type of thing that's facilitating the whole game, and that just seems very interesting. But I find in the category of the secret Hitlers, of the team based simple social deduction games, I run into this problem where there is a way for you to like use logic to like play it optimally, um, which I made the mistake of thinking when we were playing these two games of thinking like, okay, well, everyone here is a pretty smart person who has played this game many, many times before, so we all know the deal. We know exactly what to do. Um, which was definitely not how things went. Because I do feel like when everyone knows that, it does feel extremely difficult for the fascist to win. Which is funny because the two games we played, the fascist won both games because there were some pretty major liberal side blunders that were made. But I feel like if everyone knows the good route of like, okay, so we split apart the president and chancellor as far as we can, so that like whoever is chancellor will have you don't make someone chancellor who's going to be president in just the next couple of or in the next couple of I guess terms, votes, elections or whatever, and you do as much testing as possible, and then you fill out your spreadsheet of figuring out who was tested or who is claimed to be tested with what things and which claims have been made by which people to figure out who has had the most conflict and the most contested claims that they have made, and then they become the most suspicious, so you make them the chancellor the least often, or you vote no if they're going to become president. And like if everyone knows the like logic of the game and like the liberals don't make mistakes, it feels very, very hard to do anything as a fascist. And oh my god, being the fascist and then like being called out as being the fascist, especially like early on, and especially in a small player game where you literally only have like one non-Hitler, one fascist who's trying to like help the Hitler. It just, when you get called out early, there's just nothing that feels worse than that. Like, it is just truly awful of like you basically just feel stuck in like a catch-22 when when people are like, yeah, Joe's the fascist. No one ever vote for anything. No one listen to anything Joe says. And then you're like, no, really, guys, I'm not the fascist. But like, really, there's no reason for you to believe that I'm really not the fascist. And it's just like, Joe, shut the fuck up. We all know you're the fascist. Like, stop talking. And it's just like, like, what do I do now? Do I keep trying to play the game? Do I keep saying, no, really, I'm not. No, really, I'm not. I'm really, really not. Or do you just, like, do you accept it? You're just like, and, like, I'm not, but whatever. Like, do you not fight it? Or do you fight it? It's just like, God, having that happen truly, like, triggers something in my deep psychological somewhere in my psyche. It's just like, having that happens to me genuinely makes me just like, it just feels awful. It's like I feel like I'm gonna start choking up and be like, just being told, like, having to do this thing where you're like, no, really, believe me, I'm not, and just having to try your best to not just, oh my god, it like genuinely just feels like awful. Maybe that's like my severe autism like kicking in or something, but I just absolutely hate that feeling. And I feel like a lot of the satisfaction and joy from being a liberal just comes from the relief of being like, well, thank God I cannot get stuck in that position of like having to try to convince people and getting stuck in that catch-22 of there's no winning side I can take or anything when people are just convinced I'm the fascist as the fascist. I think for this game to work well, like also, okay, just when we play, and I feel like when everyone knows how to play, you get stuck in this situation where when the liberals win, it feels inevitable. It's like, yeah, of course, we did everything perfectly, and like we talked through everything, we figured out every single possible like result of any conflict that could have arisen. And it's just like, yeah, obviously the liberals won and they won, and it's just like, it's not a surprise, it's just, it feels like that was what was going to happen since the beginning of the game. And then when the fascists do win, it just feels like a complete fluke, and it's like, well, yeah, the liberals like screwed up on that one voting turn, and for some reason everyone started believing this person out of nowhere, and like everyone just started acting irrationally out of nowhere. And yep, I guess the fascist won, and it's like, yeah, because you guys were being delusional towards the end for no reason, which again, I think it speaks to the themes, and I like that fact that the mechanics are reflecting the themes of the game. It just by the end of the game, I guess that like when you're a fascist and you win because the liberals just make a huge blunder, there is a sort of smug sense of satisfaction that comes out of that. But generally, I just like do not have fun playing this game. Um, but I do think, in the optimal setup, I think this game can be a lot of fun. And I think that can occur when you have a lot of people, which is like 7+ people, when you have at least the 3 fascists or whatever. And you have like more than half of the group have like never played the game before, and like everyone's like trying, everyone's like putting in, the time and effort and energy and like thought process in an effort to try to win. They just don't know the logical optimal reasoning and route to like solve the game or whatever. So yeah, I feel like the game has the potential to be fun, but you need a very perfect setup of people around who both want to and are willing to play the game. And if someone is not having fun, and if someone has decided that they are not going to participate, this game is just very easily ruinable by someone. So you need a very perfect setup for people in order for this game to be fun. But yeah, on to Ticket to Ride. This game, generally pretty good. I feel like the thing that this game does best is functioning as a bridge to cover that gap of if someone has played a lot of like the filler, simple, board games that just take 30 seconds to learn and then you just hop right into them. If you want to like get someone from that point of playing those board games, and then you want to give them to confidence to try something like Terraforming Mars or one of those insane giant big box games where there's tokens and cards and a big board and just things and components everywhere and a ton of stuff happening, where the initial reaction and response to seeing that game is like, Jesus Christ, this is some nonsense. Like, this is for people with no lives, that are retired old people that have like 10 hours to sit down and move little plastic and wooden meeples around a board. Like, there's a 0% chance that partaking of that activity is going to be fun. But Ticket to Ride, I feel like it's got that big board and it's got lots of pieces and cards all over the place. But the game is pretty simple. It only takes like a minute, maybe 2 minutes to actually like teach people how to play the game and then just jump right into it. And there are actually like a lot of like little neat interactions and complexities going on. Through the game, when we were playing it, we did one run of this. I genuinely did think I was doing pretty good. And then by the end, the final scoring, I just got absolutely blown out of the water. Like, it wasn't even close. So I do like that aspect of the lots of like secret points at the end, and then it's not one of those games where it feels like it's over before the ending even shows up. Which, to give some credit back to Exploding Kittens, I do think it at least succeeds in making the end of the game sort of interesting to figure out like who has actually saved up the most cards and is just gonna unload everything, and wait until their opponent unloads their hands. Then you like drop the favors to get them to donate what cards they have remaining, and then hopefully, I don't like there's some thought at the end of the game in Exploding Kittens. So I do want to give it credit for that. But anyway, Ticket to Ride, generally pretty good. Yeah, I like that that simple factor. I'm gonna say Ticket to Ride over Catan. That's my hot take. But yeah, so for just little interactions, like I was just looking up like tips and tricks after, right before this, just to see if there were any strategies or whatever that I didn't implement that other people were. And there are like some really neat things that you can do. Like if you monopolize one color, if you take like all the greens and then you choose to make your like rail route placement of those greens, not based on like, well, there's no good of these kinds of trains for me to take from the shop or whatever. And I'm instead going to place these based on as soon as like the deck gets shuffled, then I'll play all my greens to make sure these all end up in the discard and they can't even be reintroduced into the deck until it gets, through a whole other time, preventing anyone else from placing green for at least the next good like 10 plus turns or whatever. So it is like interesting how you can sort of finagle certain like monopolies on different railroads based on like how you play the game, which I'm a big fan of all of that going on. I am considering I might have to pick up a copy of Ticket to Ride to like, to be that kind of game to like convince people that they are capable of playing big box board games. Okay, now some waxing philosophical. Okay, so just in regards to board games as a whole, so there's this idea. Specifically, I think you'll hear it most commonly in regards to like children's league sports games or whatever, but I think you'll hear it in the context of any game, anywhere, ever. That's this idea of it doesn't matter if you win or lose, all that matters is you have fun, And that's a thing you'll hear all the time. And I think it's true. I do think it's a good statement, a good piece of advice, and it's a good thing to internalize and to believe and to play games from the perspective of. That having been said, the intonation, the inflection, well, the phrasing of that statement leads you to believe that, it implies and insinuates that the having fun is the easy part. The having fun is just automatic. That will just happen if you let it happen. And then the winning, that's the hard part, that's the difficult part, that's the part that might not happen. But I think in truth, the complete opposite is the case. Right? Like winning, not that hard at all. There's a straight up, the game gives you an instruction manual on how to win. You just follow the rules of the game to try to meet the victory condition. And assuming you're playing with like 3 other people who are doing the same thing, then just like automatically you pretty much got like a 25% chance that you're likely gonna win. But having fun is not automatic at all. Like there's no instruction manual on how to have fun with the game. That's the one where things can like go wrong and not be accomplished, and that's the one that like I don't like the sort of general idea of that statement, yeah, that having fun is automatic, because I think, in truth, fun does require energy and effort. And like, I do feel like there's that idea of, if you've been at like work or whatever all day, and you've already spent all your energy, and then you go and you start playing board games and you're like expected to have fun, it can be like really hard if you've already expended like all your energy in the day, to have fun with the game. Like, yeah, just playing the game isn't automatically gonna be like fun for you just to be involved in it. And I guess there's also this idea of like, okay, well, what is fun? How do you like define fun? And that's also tough, because fun is this sort of self-reflexive, to have fun is to be amused, to have enjoyment. Which, well, what does that mean? Well, to be amused means you're having fun. Like, it is an autological, it defines itself kind of term. Like, you're having fun if you're having fun, right? So it's not really helpful. So how else can you define it? Well, I think that there's not really a scientific quantitative value you can put on it, which I guess conceivably you could, if you're like, okay, well, however much dopamine you release is however much fun you're having. Which in that case, if we all wanted to have maximum fun with our board game, then everyone, hey, let's just smoke some meth and then pick apart the board game for 6 hours and like peel the pieces of cardboard apart. But generally, so okay. So I think we could agree that like active dopamine release does not equal fun. There is some other intangible thing going on there. I think what a more useful way of looking at fun is sort of the like common consensus idea of, like, if everyone else is having fun, there's a good chance you're going to be having fun too. And if everyone else is not having fun, then there's a good chance that you're not going to be having fun. So I think the most like useful thing you can do to actually have fun with a board game is make sure that everyone else is having fun. Which this how do you accomplish that? Okay, so I guess now we're getting into the territory of like gamifying social interaction, which on the one hand, this is like on the autism scale, we are like reaching new levels of like interacting with board games and social interactions on a like autistic level by trying to turn this into a game, which I don't think is inherently a bad thing. It is just a non-normal way of looking at these situations. But on the other hand, I think it is a very useful way of turning this sort of idea and these interactions into something like tangible that we can like interact with and like shape and mold into something, into like creating a result that we want. So okay, if you were playing a board game, there's a good chance, a great deal of the time, you are either going to be learning the game, or like, being taught the game, or you are going to actively be teaching the game, which means like a great deal of your like mental energy and focus is going to be put towards, if you're being taught, either just making sure that you're not screwing up the rules and that you are like playing the game in the correct manner and like following all the procedures that you need to follow, or if you're teaching the game, you need to make sure everyone else is like following the rules and following all the procedures that they need to. Which means that you have like not a very high level of focus and attention you can put towards the actual aspect of making sure that other people are having fun. You got a very limited supply of good vibes you can be shooting out at people. Um, so I think the most useful thing you can do is make sure the people who, the people who are not having fun, uh, you send your good vibes towards them to try to make them have fun so that we can achieve this common consensus of everyone in the room having fun, right? But it's not that easy, right? It's not always just whoever's having the least amount of fun. Because there's certainly a threshold one can reach when they are having so little fun that they are just entirely checked out. And there is just nothing you can do to cause them to begin having fun with the game. But there is and if you send your very limited good vibe supply towards them, it's gonna just get sucked into the void and go to waste. So you want to go send that energy towards the people who are in this moment not having fun, but you still see have the capability of conceivably having fun with this game. The temporarily embarrassed winners of the game, if they are that kind of person that is going to have fun based on whether or not they win the game or not. So when it comes to modern society, fortunately, I think there's a pretty useful tool, a pretty useful litmus test to determine if someone is having fun or not. That is the, Alexander Graham Bell, God bless his soul, the cell phone. Pretty easy way to tell if someone is not having fun is if they are scrolling through their phone, that's a pretty good sign they have no problem with people getting the vibe off of them of like, well, this shit sucks. This is boring. I want to be distracted from this. So that's usually a good indicator of that someone who is in need of some uplifting. And okay, so how do you do the uplifting? The quips, the jokes, the general compliments, the make people feel like they are like a still active participant that is still changing the results of the game, to make them feel smart or clever for making good moves. And then, if they receive that and they respond well, and they respond like, if you send them the like, hey, that was a good move, or like, ooh, hey, funny joke about what's going on inside the game, and they put down the phone and respond with haha blah 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 blah, that's a good sign that that they can still be uplifted and convinced to have a good time with this. If instead you send your energy towards them and they're like, yeah, whatever, and just continue watching whatever, that's a pretty good sign that is the lost cause. So what is all of this to say? Well, basically this is to say that, yeah, having fun with a game is not an automatic thing that is going to occur. You do actively have to be willing and put in energy and effort in order to have fun with a game. I also think there is an element of, when you are the leader of the group, when you are the person teaching people the game, and sort of that it can feel that the responsibility, the burden of having fun with the game is put on you. It can feel really bad when you put in the time, the energy to rehearse the teaching of a game, when you put in the time and energy to leading the activity, and trying to like convince other people to have fun with the game. Um, when yeah, that like, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong as the leader, the teacher of a game, that can like cause people that you can do incorrectly that will cause people to just generally have a very difficult time with having fun with that activity. And when that burden is put on you, it can like just feel really bad when you can realize that you have failed, and in when your time has been wasted, or when your time has felt like it's not only actively not had people have fun, but the opposite, actively made people like bored. Um, so I was just in general with this day's board game night, uh, pretty relieved in the fact that I was not the one that had to lead these games and was not the one who had to have the responsibility of like teaching the games and have that burden of ensuring that people have fun with the games. Um, it was certainly a nice break from the first board game night. Um, but generally, the real moral of the story is that uh, people need energy to have fun playing games. So you want to give them stimulants in order to make sure that they have fun. The best way to go about doing that is you get those slow release amphetamines, those like Adderalls or whatever, that like the time release ones that take like 30 minutes or whatever before they start kicking in. You slip those into everyone's drink before board game night, and then when you start getting into the board games, those will start kicking in, and then people will get like really into the games and have a lot of energy and put in a lot of focus towards the game. Um, and so yeah, that's the cheat code. Is yeah, just buy a bunch of Adderall from like a high school student and then drug your friends with it. And that's a joke. Don't do that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But actually, just in case you were thinking that the wink, wink, nudge, nudge was not the joke part of it, that was also a joke part. Don't actually do that. All right, but yep, that's it for today. The end.